Welcome to No Longer Conformed, my online preaching and teaching ministry. We're studying the book of 1 Corinthians, Serve in Unity. In this session, we'll be looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 1 to 27, priority of the gospel. A changed life, Christ-centered versus self-centered. My life is Christ-centered when it is built around Jesus and his agenda. When it's structured with my agenda, fitting Jesus in where there is room, my life is self-centered. Serving the Lord and growing spiritually are the top priorities for a Christian. Many motivations may influence a believer: money, power, recognition, self-worth, but only one thing should control the Christian's life: the gospel. One word is emphasized in our text for this session: gospel. Priority is to be given to the message of Jesus Christ and his work. Why must this govern our Christian lives? Well, in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, our text, 4 reasons are presented for why the gospel must govern our lives as Christians. First, the gospel puts the exercise of our rights in perspective. Look at verses 1 through 14. Am I not an apostle? Am I not free? Have I not seen Jesus Christ our Lord? Are you not my work in the Lord? If I am not an apostle to the others, yet doubtless I am to you. For you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. My defense to those who examine me is this: do we have no right to eat and drink? Do we have no right to take along a believing wife, as do the other apostles, the brothers of the Lord, and Cephas? Or is it only Barnabas and I who have no right to refrain from working? Whoever goes to war at his own expense. Who plants a vineyard and does not eat of its fruit? Who tends a flock and does not drink of the milk of the flock? Do I say these things as a mere man? Or does not the law say the same also? For it is written in the law of Moses, you shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain. Is it oxen God is concerned for? Or does he say it altogether for our sakes? For our sakes, no doubt, this is written, that he who plows should plow in hope, and he who threshes in hope should be partaker of his hope. If we have sown spiritual things for you, is it a great thing if we reap your material things? If others are partakers of this right over you, are we not even more? Nevertheless, we have not used this right, but endure all things, lest we hinder the gospel of Christ. Do you not know that those who minister the holy things eat of the things of the temple, and those who serve at the altar partake of the offerings of the altar? Even so, the Lord has commanded that those who preach the gospel should live from the gospel. The Corinthians had apparently been judging Paul and his ministry as an apostle of the Lord. He responded with a logical argument of 3 points. First, do we have no right to eat and drink? He was free to eat meat sacrificed to idols just as others do. Do we have no right to take along a believing wife, as do also the other apostles, the brothers of the Lord, and Cephas. He was free to be married and enjoy a family as he served the Lord, as the others. And then third, or is it only Barnabas and I who have no right to refrain from working? He was free to live off the offerings rather than make tents to support himself. Paul had the right to enjoy a good bargain for meat. He had the right to be married and bring her along. He had the right to take offerings rather than work. He reinforced his argument with illustrations all his readers could relate to. Verse 7, whoever goes to war at his own expense, who plants a vineyard and does not eat of its fruit, or who tends a flock and does not drink of the milk of the flock. There was no doubt Paul understood his rights as a Christian and as an apostle or pastor. And yet, notice the second part of verse 12. We have not used this right, but endure all things, lest we hinder the gospel of Christ. Every believer must be willing to sacrifice in order to share the gospel message of Jesus Christ. Second, the gospel puts the importance of our work in perspective. Look at verses 15 down to verse 18. But I have used none of these things, nor have I written these things that it should be done so to me, for it would be better for me to die than that anyone should make my boasting void. For if I preach the gospel, I have nothing to boast of. For necessity is laid upon me, and yet woe is me if I do not preach the gospel. For if I do this willingly, I have a reward. But if against my will, I have been entrusted with the stewardship. What is my reward then? That when I preach the gospel, I may present the gospel of Christ without charge, that I may not abuse my authority in the gospel. Paul emphasized the importance of obedience to sharing the gospel, and he gave 3 points. Sharing the gospel eliminates boasting, our obedience, the Spirit's work. Sharing the gospel is to be done with willingness, not by compulsion. Willingly brings a reward, but unwillingly is poor stewardship. And sharing the gospel is not for gain. He says without charge. Every believer should have the perspective of woe is me if I do not preach the gospel. And then third, the gospel puts the method of our ministry in perspective. Look at verse 19. For though I am free from all men, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win the more. And to the Jews I become as a Jew, that I might win Jews. And to those who are under the law, as under the law, that I might win those who are under the law. To those who are without law, as without law, not being without law toward God, but under law toward Christ, that I might win those who are without law. To the weak I became as weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all men, that by all means save some. Now, this I do for the gospel's sake, that I may be a partaker of it with you. You see, the word win appears 5 times in this passage, and then changes to save in verse 22. The apostle used different methods for 4 mentioned groups: Jews, those under the law, those without the law, and the weak. What's the point? Well, the point is versatility in ministry. We are challenged to use various methods to reach different groups in our communities with the gospel message. The message does not change, but times do. Is the way we have always done church working anymore? Nothing should be above scrutiny. Every believer should be open to change in order, by all means, to save some. And then fourth, the gospel puts the discipline of our lives in perspective. Verse 24, do you not know that those who run a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight, not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified. As Paul moved to the issue of personal discipline, he used the illustration of the Isthmian Games. Like the Olympics, they were held in Corinth every 2 years. Every athlete had to discipline himself. Every athlete sought to run a good race. Every athlete tried to win the medal. Every Christian has opportunity to win the crowd. What are the disciplines? Well, not with uncertainty, not just when you feel like it, but with sincere commitment. I fight, not giving in to the enemy's tactics, but knowing who the enemy is, not as one who beats the air. And then I discipline my body, not being lazy or haphazard. Bring it into subjection. Every believer must discipline his or her life so that the gospel will be advanced. Where there is a will, there is a way. Where there's no will, any excuse will work. You have a great day.